This point is pretty clear. WallStreet Bets is doing what WallStreet Bets does for the monies, And the problem with this whole thing, and it's going to be a word you'll probably hear a lot. Ooh. The Pump und the Dump. You may have heard this term too. Pump and dump, right? Pump and dump. It sounds way stranger and sexier than it probably is.
Do I spot a corn bloom? I wish to purchase one, but I do not possess a sufficient amount of currency.
You could always try your hand at STONKS.
STONKS.
Follow me. You can invest in whatever you want.
Hello.
Welcome to Stocks for Orban.
I mean, up until now, this was basically all I think anyone on the left knew about the stock market. That was basically a summation of the left's total knowledge on stonks and the stonk market. So the idea, a couple weeks ago, a lot of us were getting really excited. Fight the man. What GameStop's surge says about online mobs. It's a fable of our time. Small-time investors band together to take down greedy Wall Street hedge funds using the stock of a troubled video game store. But the revolt of online stock traders suggests much more. The internet is shifting society's balance of power in unanticipated ways, and the same tools that empower the little guy, allowing for people to organize quickly and seemingly out of nowhere, troll powerful institutions and unleash chaos, but they can also give rise to extremist mobs, waging harassment campaigns, or the January 6th riot at the Capitol. What is going on here, CTV? What a weird article. In the world of pseudo-anonymous internet message boards, pranks gone wild and logic turned upside down amid a global pandemic, revolt came in all shapes, sizes, and names. Last week they gave us the great GameStop uprising. Who knows what this week will bring? One thing is for sure, we'll be seeing more and more of it. More and more of us have learned that to game the system, whether for a noble cause or say for the lulz. If a meme or a Bernie Sanders in mittens can distract us amid a presidential inauguration, and a Reddit message board can send Wall Street big shots running in panic, perhaps some good can come out of this too, right? The internet can democratize access, upsetting power dynamics between the people and traditional institutions. A stock is shares in a company that as a corporation is divided into. So if you have a corporation, that corporation itself is divided into shares. How many shares you have dictates how much ownership you have of that company. Ownership of the company takes place in the form of stocks. Shares entitle the stockholders to either a fraction of the company's earnings in the form of dividends, proceedings from liquidation or the sale of the company. So if that company suddenly liquidates itself and it sells itself off, you are entitled to get a turn of that profit after they pay back, I'm sure, debts and all that kind of stuff. Or it gives you voting power to elect the company's board. They put their shares publicly available for sale, in theory, in order to fundraise money for that company. Now, this in of itself is not a terrible idea. I'm not against the idea of fundraising money and then in turn offering shares up for that company in exchange for the money that is being put in. So I'm going to give you some money. I believe in your company. You produce the best olives in the vineyard. So I want your olive oil company to do well. I'm going to put some money down. I in turn get some stocks. That gives me a little bit of say. I get a little bit of voting power as to who will be elected into the next board, as well as the fact that going forward, should this company dissolve, I will then get a certain amount of the sale, or I'll get some sweet dividends if you turn a nice profit. That's, in theory, what everything is supposed to do in a perfect world, right? Not all the stocks are created equal. You don't necessarily have to sell stocks that will give people voting power. Different stocks have different voting rights and or privileges. Stocks can be sold privately or publicly, and when they're done publicly, they enter the market. Now, this market isn't the free market, technically. The stock market is one that is regulated by the government. Every government regulates their own stock market accordingly. The battle between amateur investors and hedge fund managers is the main plot of the GameStop saga in the United States. Wall Street experienced a rollercoaster ride because retail traders were popping up for shares of a floundering video game retainer. CNBC's Jim Cramer, mad money, described the drama as the squeeze of a lifetime. GameStop attracted short sellers who anticipated the stock price to go down, with malls dying and closures ending very quickly. Reddit and retailers saw large hedge funds and investors shorting to GameStop. The group then reacted to the scoop of the stock. Now, when this first happened, when GameStop went down, I and I'm sure a lot of other people left, were unbelievably excited, incredibly excited, because this really felt like, I'm sure as Dave Rubin just introduced to you, a David versus Goliath story. It felt like the little guy was getting revenge against hedge fund managers. Hedge fund managers are basically organizations. They're for-profit companies that manage a whole bunch of different assets. The mean of investing in such a way that the investor will profit if the value of the asset fails. There's a number of ways to do that. The most fundamental method is physical short selling, which involves borrowing assets in the form of securities, like shares or bonds, and then selling them. And then the investor will later have to purchase the same number of the securities in order to return them to the sender. It seems very vampiric to me, and always has. And I know there's a lot of arguments to be made as to why it's in essence a good thing. But for me, the idea that you are going to gamble and then profit on whether or not a company will fail, not to mention when that company fails, the amount of people that will lose their jobs in the process, sounds like an incredibly terrible idea. We're in hell saying there have been good things that have come from shorting too. Unfortunately, there's a big way we can learn from the bad things and about the companies. This is also true. Like most people, I'm sitting back and I'm watching this happen. I'm suddenly seeing this thing called WallStreet Bets pop up. It's a Reddit thread and it's a community. Like any community on the internet, it's made up of a whole bunch of different individuals, all right? You've got a whole bunch of ANCAPs in there. You've got some investment bros. You've got some libertarians. You've even got some ANPrims who didn't know how to use the internet and they were actually looking for something completely different. They stumbled onto that Reddit thread. You've got some lefties in there. You've got a whole, like it's any other community on the internet of the Reddit thread. They seem to be controversial on their own, all right? The founders of WallStreet Bets, the original founders no longer run WallStreet Bets. One of the people who originally was a part of it is now kind of disowning the current organizational people of it. The mods of WallStreet Bets kind of did a bit of a coup and tried to take the whole Reddit thread back from itself. Regardless of who's running WallStreet Bets, the ethos that they're putting out is that they're there for a number of reasons. One, it's to make money, and to make money through exploiting faults that they see in the system, such as, inflating or hyperinflating the value of a company that may have a very large short against it. Is their only purpose to destroy a hedge fund or hedge fund managers in the process? Or is, for the memes, for the jokification of the whole thing, or is it to turn a sweet profit in the act of, most likely it's going to be the sweet profit, and then the second part is just the icing on the cake. I, as well as a whole bunch of people on the left, when this was first happening, got extremely excited for the simple fact that I was like, whoa, this feels like a potential tool. This feels like something that could be utilized. If there was a coalition of people that they were able to band together in such numbers where they were able to invest small amounts of money while knowing that they were directly trying to affect a hedge fund that had shorted a stock, well, in turn, while you're doing that, the entire thing would be you would band together and effectively destroy a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. That sounds incredibly exciting. And again, it's almost like Dave even put it. It seems like a David and Goliath story. It's the people having power in order to do this. Unfortunately, when it came to the GameStop thing, the people that you're following aren't necessarily doing it because they're doing it for that reason. That story was popping up all over the place. There were a whole bunch of different posts on that Reddit thread, and posts that were popping up which were like, hey, by the way, I've been working hard my whole life. I'm a father of 4. I've had a lot of trouble, and now I finally got my opportunity to fight back, and I'm excited to be a part of this. The problem comes in, and this is why, back when the story was originally coming out, I was being very, very crucial in telling everyone, if you want to be a part of this, because it was exciting and galvanizing, remember a couple things. 1, never invest anything in stocks, crypto, Doge, that you're not prepared financially to lose. Because you could lose it all, right? That has always been my guiding principle. That and don't take financial advice from jabronis on the internet was the second. People were getting excited. They wanted to join. I wanted to join as well. I was prepared to buy some GameStonk because at the end of the day, I was like, oh, let's just see how far this will go. In Canada, the app that is used to buy stocks, it's not Robinhood, it's not blah, blah, blah. It's called Wealthsimple in Canada. They only allowed you to buy a full share. AKA, at the time of that, I think GameStonk was somewhere around $400 or so. So it's not exactly like I just get to play with $5 to be part of the quote-unquote movement. I would have had to buy an entire GameStonk share for the full $400. The Pump und the Dump. You may have heard this term too. Pump and dump, right? Pump and dump. It sounds way stranger and sexier than it probably is. What the pumpers and dumpers are doing is they're getting interest, outside interest, into joining this, all right? So right now, if it's low here, once a whole bunch of people gather interest and the story becomes exciting, you'll see the stonks start to go like this. Now, those who are used to this process, they're going to sell a lot of their stonk at this point. They sell at that point, that way they make a profit. It drops, and around this point, they buy again. Right here, they're going to buy again when it dips. I'm sure you've heard the meme, buy the dip, buy the dip. Well, that's what they do. They're much better at this than you and I are. In fact, they're so good at it, many of them don't even do it themselves. Sometimes it's just AI algorithms on the internet that are programmed to be able to buy and sell for people as they're pumping and dumping, right? Then it goes up a little bit. Hopefully you knew to dump at this point, because you're going to have to do it, pump again and dump. And so the process continues. Was the idea that we as people, people combining our forces together could effectively enact change in something that we never really had the ability to manipulate before. Because it hasn't been really the realm of the common man or woman or non-binary individual to manipulate the stock market in any way. The majority of stocks, 10% of stock shares holders, like 10% of anyone who owns stocks own 80 to 90% of the entire stock market. So it's always been manipulated and controlled by a minority of people. A minority of people own the majority of stocks, and they are the ones who are able to manipulate it in ways that you and me don't have the power to do so. However, it became really exciting to me, the prospect that if we were able to organize ourselves online in such a way that, you had a WallStreet Bets, or you had some kind of group that wasn't, again, just focused on pure profit. What if you were focused on using it to better causes? What if I wanted to use it in order to inflate the stock of something that A, was a good company, and B, would be able to use dividends and shares and all that kind of stuff for good causes, right? The whole thing seemed like all of a sudden, if we were able to organize around this, we might be able to use the markets for good. Unfortunately, being caught up on all that, it turns out the same thing was being used for a pump and dump scheme, as is often the case with these things. The same thing could be said right now about the joys of cryptocurrency, because I know a lot of people are on the Doge train. Wow. The Doge train, if you look at the way Doge is moving, it also seems very similar. Wow. But again, look at the ebb and flow. This is great for someone who has a very, very strong amount of knowledge on how to utilize this. Like if you know how to sell when it's here, and then buy when it's here, and then sell when it's here, and then buy when it's here. If that is something that you can focus on and quickly reuse, yeah, you'll turn a profit. That's how people buy. That's how people make profits in pump and dump schemes. But I have a company, and as a company owner, I want to make my shares public so that people will invest in my company. I can get outsider investment. I can use that money to produce a company that is going to produce a great service in this world. It doesn't matter what your company is going to do, but that's the origin, the entire idea behind that. It sounds great. That's what it sounds like in theory. The same thing applies to the free market. The free market, even in its name, it sounds fantastic. It sounds as if the entire thing is free. Unfortunately, in practice, and this is both historically and the way it turns out it works, it is quite literally the opposite of that. Having a free market, in essence, what that says is that you have a market for sale. You have objects for sale in that market. So if I want to sell something, say like a balloon, my balloon is going to cost $1. And now I've only got 10 balloons left. Each one of those balloons should cost $1. So I should sell to anyone who wants to pay $1 for my balloon. I've got those 10, I'm going to sell them. Suddenly I might think upon myself, well, I've got these balloons, and there's some people out there who have $1. There's other people out there who have far more purchasing power. Some people out there could afford to spend $2 on a balloon. You know what? I'm not going to sell my balloons to people who want to spend $1 anymore. I'm going to sell it for $2. Hey, that's the free market. That's the free market. It's my right. I own the balloons. I should be able to sell them for whatever price I want. I can dictate the price within the free market, because that's how the system works. What if we only get down to 2 more balloons? Well, the person who may have $100 and suddenly says, I'll pay $100 for a balloon, will be able to buy that way more. He'll have more purchasing power than any other individual who only has $1. In this situation, you see where we're going, right? The next person could say, I will spend $1,000 on a balloon. And, by virtue of the free market, I can say, well, yes, I will only accept now $1,000 for a balloon. I mean, that's why every single market that we've had at some point or another, we as a society have determined that we do need to regulate it. And I don't mean just in the idea that like, hey, you shouldn't sell ivory, so we'll make ivory illegal. You can't sell ivory within the free market. That's not the only thing I'm saying. I'm saying these markets require more regulation. The left should not be against regulation. In fact, the left should be for increased regulation, extreme regulation, the highest forms of regulation. The more we regulate the markets, the less we make it able to be the plaything of the extreme rich and wealthy. The deregulation of the markets, in essence, letting them operate to their own accord, has a disastrous effects because again, if you have more capital, you will have more power in that system. If you have more purchasing power in that system, you will be able to manipulate that system. If that very same system props up our entire economy, if that very same system is what is responsible for millions of people having jobs, well then we've got a very serious problem. That's one of the most fucked up things about the way this entire thing is organized. I don't want to see the complete and utter collapse of the US economy. And I'll tell you the reason for that is I don't want to see millions of people die. That's what the result would be. And even if the entire U.S. economy fell, someone here is like, well, it doesn't matter, Lance, you're Canadian. Guess what? The U.S. is Canada's biggest trading partner. If the U.S. entire economy collapsed, the Canadian economy would follow shortly thereafter. So would a lot of the world economies. Look what happened after the 2008 financial crisis. I'm sure a lot of the world was like, well, we didn't have anything to do with these toxic loans that the United States was basically packaging. But at the same time, you managed to collapse world economies because we're all so interconnected. We all have interconnected exchange, which is a direct result. Super fun fact, every U.S. co-op job is immune to the stock market. Ocean Spray is one of the largest farmer-producer co-ops. Well, I was getting to that. That was going to be my summary. A lot of people are saying, is there not another way we can do this? Yes, the thing that I advocate consistently for is to start engaging in worker cooperatives, either forming them with you and other groups and friends, or if you already have a business, joining other people who have them as well and turning them into worker cooperatives. The reason being is that, yes, worker cooperatives do typically weather the storm. Now, that's not always the case, as in you might look to Canada right now. One of the largest worker cooperatives in this country just failed, which is MEC, which was a sporting goods and like store that sold a whole bunch of stuff. One of the largest functional working cooperatives in Canada. Awesome place too, by the way. I was a member of MEC for a very long time. But it's not as if any single system is perfect. All right, they're not going to be perfect. What we have to look at is basically averages. What in terms of its efficacy is going to be the best potential system going forward. And you know, study after study that researches this thing shows that worker cooperatives are better not only for weathering economic turmoil, but also for a handful of other reasons that, you know, happen to be more humane. I mean, you can take the humane side out of it if you don't care about workers or workers' rights at all. That's fine. That's on you. But if you are someone like myself who cares deeply about workers and workers' rights, they're obviously infinitely better for workers and the workers' rights, better for them having, you know, democracy within the workplace. They have a say within their own jobs. The organizational structure of them can still have supervisors, by the way. A common criticism I get when I talk about worker cooperatives are people like, what, do you think burger flippers should have the same amount of control as a CEO? Do you want a burger flipper to be able to command an entire business? That's not the way they're structured. They are structured where you can have supervisors, and guess what? Supervisors can make more money under worker cooperatives if they are in fact justifiably doing more work. The difference is that it's going to cap out at a certain amount. Like Mondragon caps out at about 8 times the average worker's pay. So you at the height of your entire ladder will not be making more than 8 times the amount that the burger flipper is making. But that being said, I don't think the burger flipper, first off, it should be vilified, and I don't also think they shouldn't have a say in their job at all. Like, that's how it is right now. We have a dictatorial system in which the boss has all the control and the say, and everyone else has to do what they want. I think the burger flipper should be able to have a vote. I think the burger flipper should be able to say, you know what, I don't want us to keep using, I don't know, bleach in our food because it makes me sick and it's making our customers sick. That's what I put my vote down. And then the person who's the cash register can say, like, you know what, I agree with that. I put my vote down. And the person who's the CEO, or sorry, not the CEO because they don't operate in the same way, but the person who's the manager of the business can also say, well, you know what, you're both wrong, but we have some votes here. Turns out the majority of the workers there's going to be more burger flippers and more cash registers than there's going to be a single manager, have said that we don't want bleach in our food anymore. We're no longer going to put bleach in our food. So we've effectively voted against that. The bleach is out of it. We now have delicious food that is bleach free. You know,
want us to advertise your channel or work, please go to weareserfs.com and email us a 20 to 30 second ad, and we'll take it on to the end of one of our videos to help promote your leftist channel or progressive something, whatever you do.
To our gods, I'm Raph, Xander Corvus, Schlatsky, we look to the stars for your divine guidance. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are merely puppets for your amusement. To our lords, Trevor R., Alexander Thaler, Hans Josephine, Ryan Lubin, Timothy K. Meeblebeeps Jr., Bisexual Black Gamer, and Tofox, we shall carry your banner into the fog of war. To our Knights of the Round Table, Josh Mickelson, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Political Puppy, Jimmy Bignuts, Andreas Chiringuito, Yoppie, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Thomas Barrington, J. Fraser Cartwright, Goofalankius, Melissa Murphy, Nicholas Marks, Radical Maniac, The Great Pudini, Kale Kotka, Anthropophagic, Serene 42, Chronic de Hemphog, Phone Jenny, Incosin, Constance Joyce Lacheris, and Ramon Acosta, we drink with you and we salute you.